this is an Everton team that has now, Tom, become accustomed to getting the job done under Moyes. And Everton are sitting on in eighth right now on 46 points, only 2 points behind Chelsea, 3 points behind Liverpool and their cross-city rivals. How impressed have you been, Tom, at the job that he's done, David Moyes, at the club? And, is this a good sign for Everton fans in the years to come?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, David Moyes is just. I mean, come on. Apart from maybe the Man U job, he's just been such a good manager. I think he's a very underrated Premier League manager. Every time he goes to any club, he's took Everton to when he was first there to an unbelievable period for them. Probably if he stayed, could have won a trophy. Who knows? But that's left to be said. But obviously, gets a United job. Who's not going to take the United job, especially when it was just after Sir Alex and all that. But then I really don't understand why West Ham fans never wanted to keep him. I get he does play this football, but he won you a trophy, god damn it. And then the minute you get rid of him, I know Lopetegui was a poor signing, but the minute you get rid of him, it just shows where your team was and how good Moyes was doing with that team, because he literally had exactly same team, apart from maybe Mikel Antonio, who West Ham fans, didn't even praise that good of a footballer. And you're in relegation now. And it just shows how good of a manager he actually is. With the same squad of players, he was keeping you guys up, and he was keeping you guys getting, winning European football and getting you guys in Conference League. And he's now going to do it with Everton. And I have I wouldn't be stunned if Everton get Conference League, because he's just that good, Moyes. And he probably will get Conference League. And I hope he does, because he'll probably go win it with Everton. And Everton fans can get their trophy, and it's just, I've always loved Moyes, even when he was at West Ham, he's just a top manager, very, very top manager, probably in the top 10 managers in Premier League. Maybe I'm going crazy there, but I don't know if he's in top 5, but definitely top 10 managers ever in the Premier League. I think that has to be said. I can't really see. I know he might not have won as many trophies as many others, but as longevity goes and as successful as you can say him as a manager of his caliber has been, you have to put him there. And yeah, I think Everton can do it. I really do.
Liverpool were beaten 2-1 by Brighton. I'm going to start by saying just disappointing more than anything. I think it's easy to say that, but we played so well in midweek against Galatasaray at home, and you just thought that was going to kickstart things for the rest of the season. We got a big run of fixtures to try and qualify for the Champions League. It just felt flat. I think it just, we concede. Kirk scores a lovely goal, fair enough. Lovely finish. Thought he played well, but the rest of the team not too sure. Just lack of energy again in the Premier League. I don't know if any of you boys watched it as well, but it just felt like, JP, you're nodding your head, so I'm going to come to you.
Yeah.
It just feels like this Liverpool team, for me as a fan, it's just lacking killer instinct, energy in the Premier League right now.
Yeah, I mean, that match, I think Liverpool just wasn't themselves. Like you said, the midweek result against Galatasaray was huge, beating them 4-0 in a game that you needed to win. And now to then go to the Amex Stadium and put on a performance like that, Brighton took full advantage. Danny Welbeck, scored twice. And then Kirko's, I think his goal was, fortunate, with Dunk, the back pass and everything, and him capitalising on that. But then, Liverpool, I mean, it's an ongoing theme this whole season, it's very inconsistent. 1 week you could be doing very well, and the next week you do something like you did against the Amex. So, I don't know. Brighton, they took full advantage of Liverpool's mistakes. I think the goals, the first header from Danny Welbeck, probably avoidable. The second goal, which probably looked offside, the second Brighton goal, but then obviously replay showed that Welbeck was just behind the ball when it was played across, and he scored. But no, Liverpool, I don't know, because I don't know how you end your season, because similar to Chelsea, a good season for Liverpool would probably be probably winning the FA Cup, you're still in the Champions League, but I mean PSG are not going to be any easier. PSG, by the way, sorry to go off topic on.
I was going to talk JP. I'm saving it for later. I'm saving it for later because I want to hear your opinions later. Don't worry.
But no, I don't know. Liverpool, winning the FA Cup. Champions League, if you go on to win that, then that could be a very good season for you as well. But I think your main focus really is to secure Champions League football in the Premier League, getting back into that top 5, because you're not too far away. But you are slipping away a bit. And you don't want to be in a position towards the end of the season where you're playing catch up and you're going to be relying on other teams' results to get you there.
So from 5th to 8th, right, you've got Liverpool on 49 points, Chelsea in 6th on 48, Brentford with 46 on 7th, and Everton in 8th on 46 as well. Tom, you're the unbiased man in this situation. Who do you think gets that 5th spot? Or potentially does Villa drop down and another team pops up? But who do you think makes Champions League football in that latter end?
Let me actually just pull up the table so I can see it for myself. Okay, I got it in front of me. Right. Personally, to me, Villa aren't going to get top 4, or even the only reason they might get top 5 is because they still have that point gap, right? But I remember saying this way earlier on in quite a lot of episodes ago. Villa were winning games, right? They was winning a lot of games. They were in that title race sort of thing. And I remember you asked me, are they in the title race? And I said, no, they're probably winning the Europa League, Conference League, whatever they're in, but they're not going to win that because, Emery knows how to win them, but they're not going to win the league. And I said, well, what they're doing is they're not playing great. They're just somehow winning games. They weren't playing good. And right now it's showing that, I'm just going to break down each team quickly, sorry. And I'll be quick though. But yeah, Villa, to me, they might have been West Ham, but they're too inconsistent. I don't actually think they've been that great not that I could say who's great and who's not, but they just haven't been great. And I do see them, there's a reason Man United flew above them. I think that top 3 is pretty much set. The top 3's done. 4th, I reckon, it's such a difficult one, but I do believe Liverpool are just going to do it. I don't know why. They're just, at the end of the day, I think they're still Liverpool. They have been poor. They have been poor, but I still think they can win games. I don't know who you've got left, but I still think you'll finish above Villa at least. That 5th spot will probably be, I do think it'll be Villa. Not because, they're great, but they still just have, they've still 49, 50 for 1 for 2, 3. They're still 6 points clear. They're going to pick up 3 points here or there, and that means, you've got to lose 6 points while Brentford and Everton somehow pick up, their points. So honestly, I'm just going to Arsenal first. City first, Arsenal second, Man United third. I'm going to go Liverpool 4th, Villa 5th. Generally, I'm going to go Everton 6th, Chelsea 7th, Brentford 8th. That is my genuine, I'm trying to be, maybe apart from the Arsenal thing winning, that is generally me being unbiased. Chelsea, I don't know, I do, for some reason, as a part of me, I think Liverpool just have a bit more form than Chelsea. They just know how to win a few more games. Whereas, once again, I'll just do that third. So Man United 3rd, Liverpool 4th, Villa 5th, Everton 6th, Chelsea 7th, Brentford 8th. That is my top 8. That is generally how I think it's going to break down. Because I think Brentford are good, but they still drop points. Everton under Moyes will just be great. Yeah, it's just how I think it's going to go in the end of the day. I think Chelsea are just too inconsistent for me. And I think their biggest I think with Chelsea fans, sorry, I just want to bring this up. I think Chelsea's fans' biggest problems, and this is the truth. I know you got rich owners, but your biggest problem is you're so used to an era where, I'm not trying to be mean, but you're used to an era where you cheated football. You did cheat. No, but it is the truth. You bought players you should never have been able to get. You scammed your way to this position where you were able to dominate football, where you was able to do this. And now, don't get me wrong, you're still a historic club. You can still pull, certain players. But there's a reason why Man U can still pull bigger players than you, while Liverpool can. And you guys, maybe financially as well. I know you spent a bill, but I still don't think you can afford, now it's realistic now. I generally think you've been found out a little bit that, yes, you might have spent a bill, and don't get me wrong, some of the transfers were concerning. Some weren't, some were. But I think there's a bit more reality at Chelsea now. You're not a bad team. You're a top, you're that top 4, top 6 team still. But there's a bit of a reality check now that you can't go ahead and buy every single world-class player or these top players on the planet. I think generally there's just a reality check where Chelsea now fans have got to remember this is real football now. This is,
Yeah.
this is where you can't just go ahead and get these sort of players that you never should have had. You should never have had Eden Hazard. You should never even had Willian. These players you were picking up. And you owe us a Premier League title. But but it's the truth. I don't know what you think, JP, but I genuinely think that's just the truth behind Chelsea right now. Don't get me wrong, you spent money, but I think the reality check is you can't buy the players that you're used to being able to get and obtain. And I don't know if you think that's true.
No, I mean, you bring up a fair point, yeah. I mean, the whole charges thing from a few weeks back, yeah, it has exposed us a little bit, our transfer dealings in the past have been dodgy. But, I mean, the irony is, I mean, our new ownership, though, I don't think they're really going for the biggest stars anymore.
No, you're right. It is also true.
We're going for the best young talent there is available at the moment, and we're turning into, I mean, they said it themselves, that Chelsea are slowly turning into a business club rather than a football club, and that's the direction we're heading into. And, yeah, the charges happened, and I think I'm very proud in the fact that Chelsea, held their hands up. They didn't deny anything, and we accepted the punishment and probably further punishment too, whatever that may be. But no, Chelsea, we're going into a completely different era now. I think it's just youth football, really. Buying the next up and coming player from Argentina or Brazil or something and bringing them over. So yeah, I don't know, but Chelsea. Yeah, what happened in the past happened in the past, but
No,
I
at the
think,
end of the day, you still had a
yeah.
team that won. You had no say in that. You guys still won. You still had to go on the pitch and win these games, and you enjoy.
Yeah.
Everyone would enjoy that as fans. Everyone enjoyed Hazard. Everyone enjoyed Willian. Oscar. These players you got. But I do get the ownership as well. They are playing like a business, but maybe as well you can't. Even though you are Chelsea, maybe before when you were attracting these big players, you were doing it in dodgy ways. Maybe there is just a reality check where, yes, you are at a historic club, you are good, you're obviously bigger than Spurs, but maybe you just can't pull, maybe you can't you might not even have the wage structure to be able to pull or do these secret things where you were able to pull these bigger players, pull them away from Man United and, Liverpool, make yourself more attractive because you did sneaky things in the past. And maybe you can't do that anymore. And these likes of Man United, Man City, Liverpool are attracting the bigger players that you just, maybe you can obtain some, but maybe it's the truth. Maybe you just can't attract the top players anymore. Maybe that is the truth behind it as well. Obviously, I do agree with your business strategy and, the youngsters, but there might also be some truth that you're not able to lean someone into coming towards you anymore because they want to go to the big, these more historic clubs, that are doing better as well. So it's just the truth. I mean, see where it goes. It could change in a decade, but yeah.
Look, we're going to see where it finds out, I guess, at the end of the season, really, for Chelsea to see their fight for Champions League football against Liverpool. JP was for a second there, very angry about something, and we're going to talk about the story today that really is taking over football. This was PSG's request again to have their game postponed on the 11th of March between their Champions League ties against Liverpool, postponed the game against Racing Club de Lens. I'm going to read the Lens statement because Lens released a statement. It's very interesting. I'm only going to read 2 segments on it. In a spirit of responsibility and restraint, Racing Club de Lens, from the very first requests, made it known to Paris Saint-Germain its intention not to see this date change. True to a certain idea of sporting stability, the club had also chosen to refrain from any public communication on the subject. However, the recent proliferation of statements, interventions, and various suggestions now lead us to break from this service. And the last paragraph reads, Racing Club de Lens remains committed to equity, the clarity of rules, and respect for all stakeholders. Simple principles for a loyal and respected French football. So Lens are striking back against PSG, and for really what is Liga and the French football system. JP, I know you're going to be very passionate on this. What are your views on PSG's antics?
I mean, like you said, it's not the first time; it's the second time because they did the exact same thing against us in the round of 16. I mean, yes, you could argue, PSG were probably going to beat us anyway, but then you also think that if they did have that match, I think it was against Saint Etienne, that they postponed against us, and that got approved. If they did play that match in midweek, could it have been different against Chelsea? We'll never know. But it happened. It happened, and now I'm very happy with Lens. They stood their ground. They can't just allow this to happen. And PSG, I think it's a joke. They really should not be doing this. Because they're the champions of Europe, and this is not what the champions of Europe would do. A champions of Europe would play any game that is in front of them and take it on face value. But no, if they think they're going to get special treatment and Ligue 1 gives them that special treatment, then people are always going to look down on the French league as a whole, because I think they're already being called the Farmers League. I think at the moment it's very close in the title race anyway. I think PSG...
It's only a point. It's only a point.
Yeah. So I think, the other French league teams deserve respect as well, and PSG just can't go on and do what they want. And also for Liverpool, I mean, how are Liverpool going to react to this? Because they've got to play...
I'm appalled. I'm appalled. Yeah, this is horrendous. You won't see this in the Premier League.
I mean, given your season as well, we just spoke about, Liverpool's hunt for Champions League football. They're going to be focused on that. You got the, I think it might be just after your match against Man City in the FA Cup, the first leg. But then there's that as well. So I don't know, because hopefully because obviously UEFA didn't intervene the first time round when they did it against Chelsea, but hopefully the second time they might sort of have their say on it as well, because it kind of breaks the integrity of the champion.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I've been an advocate. The Champions League is a midweek tournament. You have to balance. The whole point of being a successful football club is balancing your games and balancing what you have in front of you. Tom, I'm going to read the paragraph before last as well. This is a really important part of Lens' statement. Beyond this particular case, the questions raised more fundamental, that the respect due to the competition itself, for it's permissible to wonder when on its own soil the championship sometimes seems relegated behind other ambitions. So is this Lens sort of saying that, is it a worry that PSG are acting like a Super League club against Liga? And how should Liga react to this?
I mean, if you're a league, then, this is where you show that, even though, look, I get the league has PSG a lot to thank for, because if they didn't have PSG, don't get me wrong, it's very well financed, the whole French league. But let's be real, if PSG weren't a thing, you'd kind of forget about the French league completely. No one can't, unless you play them in a European football, your clubs against them. No one really thinks about Marseille. No, not anymore. No one really thinks about Lyon anymore. That is the truth. And it's only because of PSG that, then you get Endrick going to Lyon, and that, just because the French league's kind of there. But at the end of the day, a league's a league. You can't have one club. If PSG can run a whole league, they're fighting in this way, can run a whole league, then what's the point, but because then what else can they do? What else can they be capable of? Can they be capable of managing the referees? Can they be capable of, just a lot of different things, getting their way to another trophy, or, there's just too many. If they get away with one thing, they get away with more things. And it's just like, the league have to respond in a respectful way. I'm not saying that the only thing with I get that the club thing's weird, because look, PSG should be able to play Lens. I get it's a big game in between, like massive, because I didn't even know Lens was the team that was second in the league.
Yes, I think that's a big part. That's why the statement was allowed to be released.
It is a massive thing. Don't get me wrong, but I do. The last season, I'm going to be honest, Spurs had this position, and we actually had a game moved, rescheduled actually. But in fairness to us, it was for the Europa League final,
which is a midweek game.
Yeah,
which would have clashed,
because obviously with the Europa. I didn't know. I can't remember the Europa League. Yeah, it was just before the Premier League, right? It was just before the Premier League ended, and we
Yeah.
had like Aston Villa in the midweek game coming up into the Europa League final, and we got it rescheduled just a bit after the Europa League final, just because we didn't want, we did. I mean, we got permission. I think Aston Villa tried to back off of it, but it's kind of like, I generally believe any team in that boat, for a final, can the midweek game be rescheduled for just a week after so a team can play a final? It's a big ask, it's a big thing. So we did have it in that essence, but I think in a round of, what a quarterfinals, I do agree. Just, I wouldn't expect Spurs to do this. I wouldn't expect Liverpool to do this. Everyone's got to play, no matter, even when you're playing Champions League anyway, you play a Champions League game, you play a weekend game, you play a Champions League game. That is just a routine. You shouldn't have to, just because you're playing Lons doesn't mean you can just suddenly reschedule. I get it if it's final. I get it if it's a final, but apart from that, this is the game. You know what's going to happen. If you want to go, you stuff's going to happen. You're going to have a game in between each game. It's just what happens. I get it for a final. It's the only one I'd say I'd actually allow it, like a final. Because final's a big game. You don't want to get injuries. You don't want to do like silly things, before. But this has to me, no excuses. PSG should not be allowed to postpone this. If they're allowed, every other club's allowed. That's the deal.
I think you're right. If PSG hadn't done this for season upon season, which they have done in the last few seasons, if this was a case of it's on primetime French telly, which it probably is because it's a battle for the title, and a lot of these games in Europe, they're nationalized, their big national games are late at night. I would have no problem with them if they were on a Tuesday requesting to play on the Wednesday. I would have or changing their Liga time. But the fact that it's cancelling the whole game is a problem. Look, we'll see what
we had a
comes up.
They've had a whole full postponement, which means you don't even know when it's going to reschedule for.
Which is the problem. But we'll see where Liga take it. But it's great testament to Lens for releasing a statement like that. One of the Premier League's greatest ever, Mohamed Salah, will leave the club at the end of the season and probably leave the Premier League forever. Currently on 191 goals in the Premier League. Don't forget he scored 2 for Chelsea. He is now 4th in their all-time list. Look, I'm going to release a TikTok for what you got about my views. But I'm going to quickly ask you to just the player he was in the Premier League. I know JP's going to be biased and say something about his Chelsea days, but Tom, I'm going to go over to you. What Salah in the Premier League? Just describe him to me, like to you.
I mean, you're going to hate me for this, but he's not my favourite player ever. Don't get me wrong. I can't discard anything he's done. That man can score goals, right? He can score goals. He's made assists. He has become an all-time great winger, right? But I think in a lot of people's views and many people's views, the reason why he just doesn't get in that, top winger for some reason in the Premier League is just because I think these other top wingers that have been there over the years, and you got to remember, a lot of them haven't stayed longevity. Where Salah, you got to respect to him, he stayed longevity. But maybe if some of these other wingers stayed, they might have got the same amount of goals or might have got the same amount of assists. But that's for another day. They haven't. Fair enough. But my only hate for Salah is he wasn't an attractive footballer to watch, and it's not. It doesn't mean he's a bad player. But JP, might be biased, but Hazard, was unbelievable at Chelsea. Scored loads of goals, got loads of assists, and he was attractive to watch. Had that winger sort of ability. Even when Gareth Bale was at Spurs, when you watch Gareth Bale, the way he was. I mean, don't get me wrong, he was probably better than Salah, so that's a bit of a mean comparison. But you got name me some wingers that we've had over the years in the league that don't get me wrong, Salah scored more goals, but name me these wingers that we've had over the years, and
you could say Ronaldo,
Riyad
maybe?
Mahrez, for example, wasn't nowhere near as much of a goal scorer as Salah, but damn, what a player he was! And it's got nothing to do with Salah's ability of football, because he's shown he can score goals. He scored 35, 40 goals. I just think the reason he will go down as a Premier League great. Don't get me wrong, he has to. He's the longevity, the goals he scored, the records he's broke. He's a legend. He's a Premier League legend. I'm not going to fault him for that. Where I think he's going to fall short on being in that all-time great starting 11 is the fact, not because he didn't score goals like that. I just think it's that attractiveness that he brought, where he just sadly he wasn't an attract. And look, Max, I know you loved him, but he didn't have that attracting football ability, which I think a lot of people love, and that's just the truth. But he was still a legend. He's a legend.
I'm going to have to agree to disagree, because at times I've watched him on the football pitch and I've seen things that just he could do. It feels like sometimes, and look, I will. It's a topic of discussion for another time, because it's too sensitive for me right now to be arguing about this. He gets into a Premier League all-time 11 for me. I don't know about you, JP. What your thoughts are on that?
Well, all-time 11. It's very
no. Omri's on the left. No. Does he get over Omri?
No.
Does he get over Bale?
Yes. Premier League. In the Premier League.
Because the thing of Gareth Bale was the Gareth Bale we know now because of Real Madrid, really.
But Gareth Bale was this Gareth Bale at Spurs.
Oh, you can't argue that.
He was doing this at Spurs. Is Gareth Bale the best British player of all time? Yes. And was he doing this at Spurs before he joined Real Madrid? Yes. There's a reason he went for the record-breaking 3 at the time before Neymar.
No, but also don't forget Ryan Giggs, another strong
Ronaldo. Cristiano Ronaldo.
Another one. Hazard. The list could go on. I think he's very on the fence.
That's a good question.
Max, what I'll say about what I'll say about Salah, I don't have any resentment towards him, because obviously, he was at Chelsea before, and I'll always remember that one goal he scored against Arsenal in that 6-0 victory when he went through on goal. But no, he's a player where, Chelsea have got a long history of this, of players we let go and have gone on to do massive, gone on to do very well, like De Bruyne. Yeah, De Bruyne being one of them, going to, not directly to Man City. Okay, the list goes on and on. But look, Salah, I think he's definitely leaving at the right time, because you saw earlier in the season where, he was falling out with Arne Slot a little bit, and he was getting dropped. And I think, to be honest, something like this definitely could have happened probably sooner, maybe the season before. But now it is happening, and it's going to be sad, because maybe you never know, if he had stayed or decided to stay at Liverpool for another, say, 3 or 4 years, could he have broken that record, the Alan Shearer record, maybe? Because Harry Kane was close, but then obviously Harry Kane isn't Bayern Munich.
I think Harry Kane is the only person, personally to me, in its current Premier League history that would have broken that record if he stayed. I don't think Salah would have.
Haaland?
Do you know where Haaland falters for me? When he gets older and he loses his pace, that's his only thing. Kane can play the way he's played all the way to the age of 36, 37. Can Haaland really play to that age with the way he plays? Because he relies on pace and power. Unless he brings, that what Kane sort of does into his game, where he can control the ball and take people on and make these passes, and do that stuff. Unless he can do that in his late, unless he can bring that into his game, he wouldn't beat it, I don't think. Not unless he could score 50 goals a season up to the age of 28, 29. I don't think he could beat it.
Agree to disagree, Tom.
Second again. We may go down, but you're second again.